Noticing what your emotional experience is like right now. And if no strong emotions are present, just noticing what the tone of your experience is. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And whatever it is, it's fine. We're just trying to check in with ourselves. We don't need to change whatever it is we find. And noticing what thoughts are going in and out of your mind. Seeing if we can just let them come and go without getting caught up in them. Moving on now to the second stage of the breathing space, gathering our awareness around the breath. So dropping down right into the pit of the stomach and allowing the attention to settle here. And just noticing the sensations of breathing in and breathing out in the stomach. So you might notice the stretching of the abdominal wall as you breathe in, as the stomach lifts, and the falling away of the abdominal wall as you breathe out, the stomach drops. You don't have to change how you're breathing, however you're breathing's fine. We're just trying to notice how it feels to breathe. And notice how the sensations are changing all the time. And whenever your mind wanders off, that's fine too, it's just what our minds do. So noticing where it's gone off to and simply returning to the breath. And now for the final stage of the breathing space, allowing your attention to expand throughout the body and aware of the breath moving in and out of the whole body. So taking in now all the space your body occupies, right from the feet on the floor, up through the whole of the sitting posture to the crown of your head. And imagining the breath flowing in and out of the space of your body. Just aware of the skin as a boundary between inside your body and the world outside. Imagining the breath moving in and out of the pores of your skin. The whole body breathing. Noticing this more spacious awareness. And then when you hear the bell, bringing the practice to a close and opening your eyes if they're shut. Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just see who's in our virtual audience. So we have Louise, who was saying, and Ian and Tom, and they're saying that they've had problems with sound, but I think you've sorted that now, thank you. And Cordial, no, yes, a confirmation that sound's back, brilliant. And we've also got Jill tuning in as well. So yeah, great to see you all. Do let us know if anyone else comes in. And just to remind you too that we have our talk on YouTube until 8:30. And then for the second half of the course, which runs up to runs from 8:30 to 9:15, we've got our discussion lounge too. The link is in the thread. So please do check into that straight after class too for a chance to talk about your practice and anything that's come up from the talk there. Okay, well I will have the pleasure of handing you over now to Pushpa.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I've really been enjoying this series, exploring the worldly winds. And I was just thinking that that image of winds and worldly winds is just one of the many creative ways the Buddha had to point us to things that are habitual that we may not be noticing. And there are, they're just different ways in different images. And I think the worldly winds is a very, very effective image. And it's an image in terms of worldly, the fact that the world, the mundane world, it's all a flow of changing conditions all the time. And we may not know this consciously, but on deeper and deeper levels, we're resisting. We're resisting that change. We're resisting the fact that these winds of change are blowing in us and around us, and they're unpredictable. We can't predict them. And there's nothing personal about it either. But we take the ups and downs of these winds very personally. And underneath it all is, I guess, what you would call, I like to see it almost as an inner mechanism that comes from kind of the way we're innately wired, that keeps us, I guess, not liberated, so kind of imprisoned, this mechanistic way of pushing away what we don't want and pulling, trying to draw what we do want towards us. And the worldly winds is a really effective way of helping us to reflect on that, not only in our daily lives, but it's reinforced in meditation. It's another way to navigate meditation. And the way to navigate through these worldly winds, I'll come to later. We've been exploring different ways to get between these polar opposites of pleasure, pain, gain and loss, praise and blame. And well, we have 4 categories, but there are probably more we can think of. But they're quite helpful signposts. And tonight we're looking at fame and infamy. And they're quite interrelated to the other winds. So the fact that fame is opposite infamy kind of implies that fame is something we really want. So it's kind of in line with that pleasure side of the winds, the gain. And it's most related to praise. So when we're seeking to be famous. It's almost like we're wanting to, really up the approval rating for ourselves, really, really, really wanting to be looked up to and approved. And infamy is like a pushing away of. Infamy is something we fear, and it's a more extreme form of being blamed for something. And this pull towards fame, I think it's quite hardwired into us. We kind of evolved to survive in social groups, and so in order to, so there is kind of an urge in us to want to belong to the group, so not to be an outsider, but there's also an urge to want to be a bit special in the group, to stand out. And Vajra Gupta, I'll just make a little plug for this book, Sailing the Worldly Winds, a wonderful book about these teachings. He surmises, well, maybe in more ancient times, people who got the most approval would be given the most food or the best mate, and so there's quite a impulse in us to want this praise, to want this approval. And this whole area of fame makes me think of this line in Shakespeare, that some are born great, some seek greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. So it's not that fame is terrible in and of itself. So I was thinking of someone who was born great or famous, like the Dalai Lama. He's definitely used it to the good. But it's the seeking the fame, the kind of hunger and that grasping that really leaves us vulnerable. It most likely comes out of a deep sense of insecurity, and likewise this fear of not being approved, which is infamy, is the strongest example. And the Buddhist tradition has some very interesting stories about navigating a middle way between this fame and infamy. And one of the ways to navigate, or a doorway through, is to be a true individual. So to be really clear, have a real clear sense of self-knowledge, responsibility for oneself, and a real clear sense of one's values. And this is a very strong ideal in developing as a person in Buddhist practice. And there was a famous Buddhist teacher called Hakuin, who was very, very highly respected. But then a village girl got into trouble. She got pregnant, and she didn't want to say who the real father was. And so she started accusing this Buddhist master of fathering her child. And he just was a true individual in it. He was equanimous. He had the quality of equanimity. And he famously said, "Is that so?" And he just took the child in and raised the child and took care of her. And then a few years on, the woman changed her mind and decided, and she apologized. She said she made the whole thing up. And again, he just said, "Oh, is that so?" And he handed the child over. And the Buddha himself, there were plots of competing teachers to discredit him. And again, his teaching was around equanimity, not to sail those winds of fame, being looked up to, and to not be thrown off course. To stick to the practice and not fall into that insecure wobbling around. And you could say that in modern consumer society, there's almost gale force winds of fame and infamy. There's a lot of investment now in getting our attention through advertising or whatever, to underpin, this consumerist economy. And there's a lot of, obviously exaltation of celebrities and almost one Buddhist writer calls it like an emergency type of atmosphere. Everything's very dramatic. There's a lot of pitch to engage our emotions and our senses, outrage, and and we could perhaps look up to these celebrities. I think there's one thing about being famous that Vajragupta brought out, which is that we could have a sense that they don't have to play along the rules that we have to, that they have this very easy life, but they're absolutely at the mercy of all the story-making machinery around. And of course, we've got social media where if one is, a bit insecure, that could be a real kind of way to get off track and to get sucked into that very insecure place of seeking approval in that way. And I think I was thinking of myself, if I ever wanted to be famous. I don't know that I wanted to be famous, but I think I've always wanted to be a bit special. And I think I was the first child in a family of 4. And I think the first child always is treated a bit specially because they're the first one. And I remember when I was thinking of training in the law, that I had this image in my mind of my gravestone with judge in front of my name. And yeah, this yearning to stand out a bit, how could I stand out a bit? And I remember my aunt once got me a kind of secretarial job in a celebrity kind of managing agency and picking up the phone to these Hollywood actors. And I think Vajragupta was saying there's a little bit of magic about being in touch with someone famous that's a bit hard driven into us. But at the same time, I remember even then thinking, oh no, there's a lot of hype in this, and I actually wasn't that impressed. But I guess it comes and goes with the wind. And meditation can be a great inner resource in terms of navigating through these worldly winds of approval, between approval and disapproval. And again, what's underneath it is this swaying between pushing away what we don't want and pulling what we do want in us. And what happens in meditation is we slow things down, so we have less distraction. And there's a lot of story making, particularly around fame and infamy. So with meditation, when we're pulled off course in meditation, we could just maybe observe what kind of stories we're telling ourselves much more clearly. And we don't need to feel bad about it. It's what we do. The way it helps us is that we're observing it, and to observe it is actually to give it more space and to help it settle down. And the body is key in this, because this play of pushing and pulling is most felt in the body. And the Buddha came up with another really great image I really like about this pushing and pulling. And he said, imagine 6 different animals tethered together, and you could say each one of the animals stood for a different one of our senses. So we had the 5 usual senses, but in Buddhism, the mind's a 6th sense. And the strongest animal would be pushing pulling the rest of the animals with them. But then that animal would get tired, so then another animal would take over. But if you have a stake in the middle that they're all tethered to, they stay centered, and then eventually they might settle down. And that's often used as a good image for how the body works in meditation and helping us with our scattered energies going here and there. It's an anchor. I like to also see it as a tree with roots, and the winds, we can be affected by the winds, but we're rooted. We don't topple over if our roots are deep enough. So that's a great thing to keep coming back to in meditation. Sudhaka last week, he was talking about, I think it was praise and blame, I think. But regardless, what he was bringing up about these worldly winds is that we get thrown off course often because of a lack of contentment in the moment, that we're very susceptible to being drawn to something in the future, regurgitating the past, worrying about, again, praise and blame, that we're going to lose something, how do we get something? And this shows like a certain sense of inner lack, a lack of contentment. And he was talking about one way through this is cultivating just simple pleasures in life. So really resourcing ourselves by turning towards what's most uplifting in our lives. And we can also do this in meditation. We have what comes through the senses as pleasurable or pleasant and unpleasant. So that's more of a worldly pleasure. But as long as we don't grasp onto that pleasure, it can be a good way into unworldly pleasures in meditation. So that's another way of working in meditation to cultivate that pleasure that has no outside source, which is very beautiful and uplifting in meditation. But we can reinforce that in our daily lives by just being with the simple pleasures without grasping onto them. Now, I think springtime is quite a challenge that way, because I think, we were just talking before the class about all the cherry trees that are out and the magnolias, and I'm just delighted with things coming up in the garden. And I really need to, I often come back to my body to just check, am I grasping onto it? Because there can be kind of a restless excitement in it. I think spring is noted for its kind of restless energy. And that, to me, if I can feel that, I know it's not completely pleasurable. There's this little edge of grasping into it, and I can feel it in my body, and all I have to do is observe it, and it drops. And then I get that simple pleasure that's very nourishing. And likewise, with things we push away, there's a restless kind of anxiety around that we might notice in meditation. So things come up that are pleasant and unpleasant, and it's kind of underneath the distractions, that kind of restlessness, so that anxiety adds an extra layer of resistance around what's unpleasant. And all we need to do is to observe that. So in our meditation period, we'll do the mindfulness of breathing, but we'll have a longer third stage. And I'm going to do a bit of guiding towards turning towards a deeper bodily awareness of that tension that comes with pushing away and pulling towards. And also a way to cultivate more pleasure in meditation. You know, starting with what's pleasurable in our physical senses, and perhaps using the in-breath to breathe in more energetic joy, and then the out-breath to connect with calm and groundedness, so to ground that, and contentment. So I'll just ask Lisa to pass me the reader. So we'll get back into our meditation postures. Oops. Thank you. Okay. So let's take some time to settle. Perhaps getting in touch with that breathing space we had a few moments ago. So as vivid a sense of our bodies as we can, getting a sense of the weight and shape of our bodies. Perhaps noticing our bodies more in contact with the ground. Those points in our bodies that are holding the weight of the torso, the feet, legs, and sitting bones. And then looking for a sense of uplift and expansion in the upper body. A sense of gently lifting up through the spine, through the crown of the head. Sense of sitting poised between the sitting bones. Starting from the top of the head, we're just going to move downwards through the body, just inviting whatever can relax and let go to relax and let go into the ground, into that support. And then bringing our attention to where we most notice the breath. Just imagining we're riding the breath there, relaxing into the breath. And as we're doing that, we're noticing more and more of the body being involved with this act of breathing. You might want to let the breath out very gently through the lips. So really imagining we're soothing with the out-breath. And feeling energized and alert with the in-breath. And that breath, as we're breathing, it's making more and more space to let in how we are in this moment. And we're just folding that into the movement of the breath. As we begin the mindfulness of breathing. So in the first stage, giving more attention to the soothing effect of the out-breath. And if we like, we can gently count after each out-breath up to 10 and then starting again. Breathing naturally. And if we find our minds running away, we're getting distracted, just come back to the post of the body, points of contact with the ground, and then the breath. And now giving more attention to the energizing effect of the in-breath, counting lightly before each breath, before each in-breath. Now dropping the counting and just staying with the full rhythm of the breath, the full cycle. And particularly turning our attention to what we might find pleasurable in our experience right now. So it could be finding something pleasurable about the sensations of the breathing, something pleasurable coming in through the senses, such as air on our skin, bodily warmth. And imagining we're breathing in joyful, pleasurable energy, and then breathing out calm, contentment. So breathing in joyful uplift and expansion. Then breathing down, calm, contentment, groundedness. And if we notice our minds running away, just coming back to the body and scanning for anything that might be tensing. And bring a non-judgmental awareness to that. And just noticing if that helps it let go. And then going back to breathing in and upwards, joyful energy, and out and downwards, calm and contentment. And in the last stage, we'll bring attention to the more refined, pleasurable sensations around our nostrils, just at the point where we first notice the breath entering and leaving the body. Now letting go the efforts we've been making, and we'll just sit for a moment, coming back to a broader awareness of the whole of ourselves, sounds around us, air on our skin, clothing, and the weight and shape of our bodies. And then I'm going to ring the bell and open your eyes in your own time.
Thank you, Anna-Priscilla, that's lovely. So just a few words just to close off this part of the evening. So firstly, just a reminder to you all, our classes are free to everybody. You're very welcome to come along and help form part of our community. but at the same time, our ability to put on classes is powered by your generosity too. So please do donate if you can to the classes, and we suggest a donation of £10 if you're waged, or £5 if you're unwaged. And Emma will put a link in the chat if you do feel moved to donate, and whatever you feel able to give, it would be really, really welcome. Thank you. And just to let you know about a couple of other things we've got coming up. So this Saturday is Tree Retina Day. So it's the anniversary of the founding of our community. It's the 54th anniversary, I believe. And there's a day of activities on the Buddhist Centre online. So again, there's a link to that. So please do come along to that and get the chance to meet people from our centre, but also from all the centres around the world. I went last year online and it was really, really inspiring. So I'd encourage you to come to that. We've got another course coming up if you want the chance to sort of do a regular course to help like sort of deepen your practice. There's a really exciting new course, the Evolving Mind, which is all about looking at like how our like sort of like minds and brains have developed through evolution, and seeing how Buddhism can really help us work with that in a more skillful way. So again, the link to finding out more about that is in the chat. And then finally, this has been the last series, the session of our current series on worldly winds. And just to flag up from next week, we've got this really exciting new event happening on Monday nights, but actually going through every day, which is our Spring Clean Your Mind meditation challenge. So it's a chance to practice meditation. That's our challenge, you practice meditation every day for 6 weeks. It's a real opportunity to help reset your minds, take up meditation as a completely new practice, or find ways to deepen an existing practice. And what we're offering for that is our weekly class on YouTube and Zoom on a Monday night, which will contain a toolkit to help you get set up and deepen your practice, as well as opportunities to hear from members of our community about their meditation practice and to take some inspiration from them. And every day we've got it's linked through our online space, Discord, which is an app you can sign up for, and we will have tips and guidance and short videos every day of that challenge, just to help you get more into things, and also get a chance to meet us some more too, and join with us as a community taking up this challenge together. So yes, there's a link to sign up for that as well in the chat, and we'll hope you'll join us for that. So so thank you very much for coming to the class tonight. The first part of the class, and I really would encourage you now to click on that link to go into our Zoom discussion lounge and discuss what's come up from tonight a bit further, and Ian will be there waiting for you to welcome you into that. But that's it from us here at Everspace. So good night, and hope to see you soon.